Hey guys, okay, so I am back with another installment of Criminal Charts, and today we're going to talk about someone that has been on the headlines quite a lot for the past couple of years. If you didn't figure it out already, we're going to talk about Diddy. Now, I was super interested in trying to figure out what makes someone so evil based on everything that we're seeing online right now and all of the people coming forward with their stories about him, including Cassie, and all of the things that they're saying about these parties, it really makes you wonder what is going on inside of the mind of someone like this. So, like we did in the last video, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of Diddy, a little bit about his personal life, his career, and some of the allegations that have been coming forward in the past couple of years, and then we'll get into his chart. So everyone knows who Diddy is. He was a power player in the 90s and the early 2000s, and even up until 2023, when the first complaint came forward, he was still a very popular heavy hitter in the industry. Now, we all know him as being the founder of Bad Boy Records. He was behind some very influential music artists like Notorious B.I.G., Mary J. Blige, and he was also behind a ton of our favorite songs, including stuff like I'll Be Missing You. And then from there, we ended up seeing him expand into a clothing line with Sean John, and he even had that partnership with Ciroc. So I guess you could say it would be fair to say that he was quite the businessman as well. Now, one thing that has become very well known about Diddy is that he had some very big parties, including one that was called the All White Party, where everyone in the entertainment industry made sure to go to. But it was at these parties where there has been a lot of speculation, a lot of talk that, after the main part of the party was done into the late hours or early hours of the morning, that was when there was a lot of very disturbing and illegal things happening. Now, if you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've heard about the allegations that came forward about Diddy. And it all started in 2023 when his ex girlfriend, Cassie, who we all know and love, she was one of our favorite artists in the 2000s, she came forward with a shocking allegation. In November of 2023, she filed a lawsuit against Diddy, essentially accusing him of raping her and, SA. And I'm trying to be mindful of the words I use here on YouTube. I don't want this video to be taken down. And even though Diddy did settle this lawsuit the very next day, it basically opened the flood doors to a bunch of other people that had experienced similar things at the hands of Diddy to come forward. And then in September of 2024, Diddy was indicted on federal charges. Now, this was a huge deal because some of the things that came forward were charges like trafficking and also racketeering. And some of these crimes, if not all of them, go back well over 2 decades, almost from the beginning of his career in Hollywood. And then we had that video that came out of Cassie in the hotel with Diddy. If anyone was doubting whether or not she was telling the truth, that video really just cemented it for everyone. There was no denying that what she was saying was 100% true. And by early 2025, there have been over 60 individuals that had filed lawsuits against Diddy for some sort of sexual misconduct. So that's a quick summary on what's been going on. So let's get into his chart. Now, again, I do use Vedic sidereal astrology, so this is going to be different from Western astrology. If you guys know the difference, I just find that sidereal astrology tends to be a lot more accurate when it comes to understanding someone's personality. And I'm going to put his chart up here so you guys can follow along. Now, the first thing I see here is that his rising is in Aries. Now, these people are extroverted, they're very bold, they're quick, they're unapologetic, they lead with a lot of intensity. They appear to be very confident people. These people are not afraid of challenges. They love being in the middle of all of the action. They're drawn to power. They also tend to be quite competitive, very magnetic individuals, but deep down on the inside, there are a lot of mixed feelings, which we'll get into throughout the rest of this chart. So his sun is in Libra and it's also at the 18th degree. Now, because I was not able to find the exact birth time of when Diddy was born, I was able to find the date, the year. He was born in Harlem, New York. I was not able to find the time, which is important when you're calculating the moon sign as well as your rising sign. So, based on all of this, this is the best estimate I could come across. And we're also not going to be able to find the houses because you need the time for that. Okay, so his sun is in Libra, and again, it's at the 18th degree. So, what does this mean? Well, right away, he is a very social person. Combined with his Aries rising, he's extroverted, he's a social butterfly, he's very charismatic, he's diplomatic. He loves being surrounded by relationships, whether they're romantic or just business relationships, casual relationships. He just likes having people around him because you never know when you're going to need someone for anything. Now, because Libra is also ruled by the planet of Venus, which is the planet of love, beauty, aesthetics, pleasures, he loves being surrounded by these sorts of things. So it's not a surprise that his life was filled with a lot of beautiful women, a lot of beautiful things, a lot of luxuries as well. Now, the thing about his placement being at the 18th degree is a Virgo degree. It's ruled by Mercury. Now, even though he does appear to be very charismatic, very flowy, easygoing, having this placement at this specific degree could suggest that he does have a very rigid nature on the inside, which we're going to see a little bit later on in his chart. Okay, so next we have his moon in Leo. Now, because we didn't have his exact birth time, this is again an estimate. However, it was based on it being at 12 noon that day. However, the day, most of the placements do result in being a Leo moon. So this is a safe bet in assuming that his Leo is actually in the moon. All right, so what does it mean to have your moon in Leo? Now, this person definitely craves a lot of applause. They crave words of affirmation. They need to be admired. They need to be praised. Very much like a Leo, a lion. If you know anyone with a Leo rising, a Leo moon, or any heavy amount of Leo placements, you know that these people love being the center of attention. However, on the dark side of this is that if these people do not get the recognition or the admiration that they need, it really does hurt them at the core. Now, the moon also rules our emotions, our feelings. So, this can go both positive and negatively. So, when they're happy, you know they're happy, they're in a great mood, they are very loving, very warm. But then, when they are in a dark place, this could also show up in very heavy emotions, very a lot of anger. They are not very good at hiding their emotions. You can tell when a Leo is in a good or bad mood. Now, from a public standpoint, this could explain why we see him having these sudden outbursts. He was known to be a very popular person. He gets along with a lot of people, but he does have a tendency to ask for things that most people would not ever ask for. He demands a lot of special treatment, but when he gets told no, he doesn't make it a secret that he is upset. He is known for having these insane outbursts, and sometimes they even lead to violence. Okay, so next up we have his Mercury, and again, it's in Libra. And it's also at the 11th degree. So, again, another Libra placement. And this time it's in Mercury, which is the planet of communication. So, again, having his Libra placement here means, or it actually more emphasizes the fact that he is a very social, charismatic, diplomatic type of person. He has a way with words. He knows how to balance relationships. The Libra sign in astrology is the scale with the two balances. So I would even say that he's kind of like a master at this because he does have multiple placements in Libra throughout his chart. And we can also see this in his real life playing out. He was very well connected. When you think of someone having diplomacy or being very diplomatic, it's someone that is able to maintain strong connections, strong relationships. And because he was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood for almost 2 decades, that took a lot of connections. It took a lot of relationships to maintain that, and it shows. So the 11th degree placement here is an Aquarian degree. And when you think of Aquarians, they are rule breakers. They are very bold. They go against the norm. They really just don't care about what anyone else thinks, which is something that, is kind of obvious when it comes to Diddy. He voices what he wants to say. He doesn't shy away from his opinion. It's his way or the highway. Next up, we have his Venus in Virgo, and it's at the 29th degree. So, Venus in Virgo, what does that mean? Venus is the planet of love, relationships. It also represents money. Now, it being in Virgo, this is not necessarily the best placement for a Virgo. It kind of is the opposite of what you would want a Venus placement to be. Virgos tend to be very analytical. They're very OCD type of people. They're very organized. They're very strict about certain things. They need a structure. They can be very judgmental people. And when it comes to love and relationships, they really need their relationships to be completely structured, organized, and it kind of needs to be all about them. Now, here we also could make the assumption that he sees relationships as needing to be perfect. This is a Virgo trait. He also needs full control of the relationship, which is something that we clearly saw throughout all of the legal claims that came out, especially his relationship with Cassie. She talked about how he always needed to be in control. She needed to do everything he said. She needed to do it whenever he said. Essentially, when Diddy says jump, you ask how high. Then we have this being in the 29th degree. Now, the 29th degree is also known as a fame degree, which again makes a lot of sense because his relationships were very public relationships. He was dating JLo for a long time. He was dating Cassie. His relationships were very much public. There was no hiding that for sure. Next up, we have his Mars. Now, Mars is the planet of aggression. It's the planet of ambition, hard work. Some people would even say it's a planet that has to do a lot with your career. It also represents how you react when you're upset. Now, his placement is in Capricorn, which means that it's exalted. Now, when a Capricorn placement is exalted, it means that this placement is very much at home with this planet. So these two, Mars and Capricorn, go very well together. And this could either be very good or it can be very bad. So someone that is using this in a positive way can be a very successful person. Capricorns are known to be very hard workers, they're disciplined people, they're high achievers. They do not shy away from hard work. Now, when you place this with the planet of ambition and energy, hard work, and all of that, it could lead to someone being unstoppable. However, if this person is wounded and they are not necessarily strong enough to control the impulses of Mars, this could make a Capricorn very angry. I would even say violent. It could make them not an easy person to be around. This person would probably require a lot of attention. Everyone around them would probably have to walk on eggshells because they would fear whatever outburst this person would lay on them. And I think that's something that we definitely see in Diddy. There's a lot of encounters coming forward where people are saying that if he just did not get what he wanted, there was a lot of anger that would come out. And I think we can kind of see this in both the positive and negative way in Diddy's chart. For example, having Mars in Capricorn was probably a big part of him becoming so successful at such a young age. He was able to found the Bad Boy Records label when he was still in his 20s, and that's something that's essentially unheard of. And he was able to bring it to the top. It was one of the most well known record labels ever, but we can also see it in the negative way where he definitely uses his anger and threats to get what he wants. Okay, next up we have another Virgo placement, and this time it's in Jupiter. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and whatever is in here, that's what Jupiter is going to expand on. So we can safely assume that he is going to show a lot more of his Virgo traits. Now, I believe this is the third placement that we see in Virgo, so that would make him a Virgo stellium, which we'll also cover a little bit later. So here I would say that his belief system is probably rooted in a lot of logic, precision. There's definitely control issues here. And he probably feels like he needs to embody these very rigidly to the core in order for him to be successful. There's very little wiggle room, if you could say. He probably has this feeling or insecurity, maybe, where he feels like if he's not perfect, then he's not going to be successful. And this probably also crosses over into how he judges other people. He has high standards for others. I think this was also something that Cassie made it very clear. He just wanted his girlfriends or whoever was around him to always portray a certain image. Okay, so another prominent placement that I came across that is worth discussing would be his Neptune, and it's in Scorpio. Now, if you know anything about astrology, you can see where I'm going with this. So, Neptune is the planet of the subconscious. It rules illusions, our deepest fantasies. And when you pair it with a placement like Scorpio, which is very watery, it's very dark, mysterious. Some people believe that Scorpios tend to be quite psychic. Um, this results in someone being very intuitive, they're very secretive, and they can be very emotionally intense. So, with these two placements here, I think it would be safe to say that he's definitely attracted to mystery. He's attracted to taboo things, the occult, stuff that would be, I guess, quote unquote, forbidden to the rest of the people, to normal people everywhere else. And this is something that we're seeing come out quite a bit. We can see him idealizing darkness. He's definitely attracted to stuff that he shouldn't be doing, which is coming out from all of those parties that everyone has been talking about. And so, how this plays out as to how it's perceived, I would say that, a lot of his outer shell is full of Libra and Virgo, where people see him as being strategic, but also charismatic. But deep down, he has these dark, very disturbing fantasies that are being played out in real time now when we're seeing all of these claims in court. And again, we have another Virgo placement. This time it's in Pluto. Now, Pluto in Virgo basically means that he needs a need for control. He needs things to be perfect, almost pure in a way. He's very analytical. And if he doesn't get this, it could basically lead to self destruction. So let's summarize how all of this could mean that Diddy was perceived. So it's safe to say, I think, that Diddy was definitely a extrovert. He had a very outward image. He was confident. He was bold, charming, diplomatic, charismatic. He was very ambitious. He was probably a very good, I guess you can say, quote unquote, sales guy. He had a way with words for sure. I think that definitely helped him get away with what he was doing for a while. He was likely able to talk his way out of things. But we're also seeing that he was a very emotionally, at least a very deeply emotional person on the inside. And if things just didn't go his way, he had a very hard time controlling this. I would even say that he was probably overcompensating for how emotional he actually is. He might have felt like he was probably a very vulnerable person, which is why his outward image, like the bad boy persona that he projected to everyone, it was probably overcompensating for how he actually felt on the inside. And so, like I said before, we went over his chart. This guy needs a lot of need for control. He has four planets in Virgo, basically means that he needs things to be done his way. He's a perfectionist, which explains why he gets so angry when things aren't done perfectly or when things don't go his way. And he's also probably very self critical, as judgmental as Virgos can be towards everyone else. They also have the same level of criticism for themselves, if not even worse, which could also lead to his insecurity and then his emotional outbursts. Now, how was he able to get away with this for so long? Well, part of the reason I think he was able to get away with this for long was because of his Libra placements. He was well liked, he was really well received in Hollywood for a long time. He was friends with all of the A-listers. He was associated with Diddy, Beyonce, the Kardashians, literally everyone that you can think of. They would all go to his parties. If you were in Hollywood, if you wanted attention, you needed to go to these parties in order to get even more attention, to be well known. And I think he was able to use his charisma to build and maintain these relationships as well, which probably helped him get away with these things for a long period of time. Unfortunately, life is not always about what you know, how educated you are. It's usually about who you know. And again, when you pair these Libra placements with all of the Virgo placements, overall, I think this kind of gives him an evil mastermind kind of personality, someone that is very unsuspecting on the outside, but on the inside, they have this whole strategic plan just waiting to be unleashed in ways that most people would never catch on to. But yeah, that is my analysis of Diddy's chart. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree, disagree? Have you guys done any observations using Western astrology? And if you have any other criminals that you guys want me to cover in these charts, also leave them in the comments below. And don't worry, yes, I will be doing other true crime stories. The next one is going to be a true crime story, so don't worry about that. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for sticking around. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.